Hello everyone. So in this video, I want to discuss the idea of listen to your heart or listen to your soul. I know it sounds like bullshit, but it's just nice to say. So actually what I mean is listen to yourself. So what does it mean listen to yourself? I mean, in which case do we listen to ourselves? In which case we don't listen to ourselves? What exactly it means? It seems a typical bullshit statement like listen to yourself, but how can you not listen to yourself? What is the opposite of listening to yourself? Well, let's look into it. So I will give some tips and I will give my view. So you are either listening to yourself or you are listening to your stories. I'm not considering listening to others. This is more about when you're thinking, when you're deciding. So you're either listening to yourself or listening to your stories. This is the first point. In general, it's helpful in order to make the distinction of when you're listening to yourself and when you're listening to your stories to pay attention to specific keywords. So every time you use the keyword should or the other typical keywords like deserve or almost, well, maybe not almost, but should, could, deserve, for sure, or the keyword be, like if I do this I will be that. This is a story about identity. Those are stories. When you use the keyword want, that's what you want. There is no story. If you can ask the question why, usually, not always, but usually there is a story behind. If you can answer the question why. If you cannot answer the question why, maybe there is no story, or maybe it's buried deep down. So let's look at a few examples. So I never say that I should eat chocolate ice cream, but I want to eat chocolate ice cream. When it's a direct preference, we rarely, if not never, say should. We just say we want, or we feel like. I want this, I want that. Desire, motivation. Nothing wrong with it. It's the only source of motion. So when you say I want, you are listening to yourself. Usually. Then you have to be more careful. Try to understand if it's something you really want as a direct preference or it comes from a story. When you say I should something, or I deserve something, or if this then I will be, the keyword be, to be, about identity, story about identity, story about should, story about deserving. Those are stories. So it's important to pay attention to what we think, what our mind says. Because sometimes, if you have story, of course, ideally we drop the stories, but it can take some time to drop the story. It takes a lot of introspection, self-awareness. It requires to monitor our thoughts to drop the stories. And also we have to find the stories. I provide example of the common stories, but there may be other stories, other conditionings that we have and we don't realize immediately. So should is really a strong indicator that it's a story. Every time you believe you should do something, very strong indicator that there is a story. So try to understand what is the story, why you should do this. It will make you something. It should do something, because if it's a story, it means if then, if something, then something. That's the story, the model of the story. So if there is a should, there probably is a story. Try to figure out what is the story, and then start to question the story. Why do you have that story? Are the assumptions solid of that story? They usually never are, unless you have experienced it directly. But then it's not a story anymore, it's a direct experience. But most of the time, when you hear the word should in your mind, it's about a story. And then you ask why I should, what it will make me if I do it. what it will not make me if I don't, what I will be, what I will not be, because usually it's about identity. So I should do this because if I do this, it makes me this kind of person. I shouldn't do that because by not doing that, it will not make me this kind of person that I don't want to be. Often about identity, not always. Lots of stories about identity, but not all about identity. So what is the story behind? And sometimes you hear, I want this ice cream. I want to do this. Now you may still question why and see if there is a story behind. Why is a very powerful question to try to figure out if there is a story. By asking why, you can usually find out if there is a story behind it. So pay a lot of attention to the word should and the word want. If you hear the word should, very high chance if it's a story. Ask the question why and try to pay attention because usually it's connected to identity. I should do this so that I will be that. The keyword to be. I should do A so I will be B. So I should do X so I will be Y. It's a big story. It's a story about identity. I should do X so that I will be Y. I should do X. Why should I do X? So that I will be Y. I want to do X. Why? Because I just want? I just feel like it? It's a direct preference. It's not a story. Or there is a story. I want to do X because it will make me Y. Then it's also a story. So what is the story? Why do we feel that we have to be Y? Why do we have to be in a certain way? What is the story? Because you can ask the question why many times. So you should do this so that you are that. But why do you think you want to be that? Why you should be that? What does it mean? What does it mean to be that? Why do you have to be that? Why is it so important to be that? And usually it's also connected to something else. You have to be that because people that are this, then something, people that are not this, then something else, another story. Those stories can be very intricate, like a web. Of course, it's a process that takes time. I'm not saying it's easy. It takes time to do, but it's worth it. Because once the story drops, your mind is so clear. You don't get lost in the stories. You just follow your preferences. You can be you in some way. Whatever you means, you can be you. If you want chocolate ice cream, you will eat chocolate ice cream. Of course, you will still think of the consequences. You will not eat it every day because then you will get sick. But it's just about what you want and the consequences. There are no more stories about that you should do this so that you can be that. And you should be that so something else, blah, 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 blah. So try to listen to yourself. Listening to yourself is not some mystical thing. It's paying attention to the words that you use when you think. If you use should, certainly a story. If you use should so that you can be, certainly a story. If you use want, it's much less likely to be a story. But it could still be a story, but less likely. So try to always ask why, and even the why of the why and the why of the why of the why. Try to dig with why. Until you stop, you cannot find a why. And then hopefully once you cannot find a why, it's a real preference. It's just something you want. And then you can start to understand what you want without the stories. You stop chasing the stories and you actually go after what you want. So now you're listening to yourself. You are listening to what you want and not to your stories.